Today's video, I will discuss a very simple lighting technique that's so simple to master, but it's guaranteed to level up your photos, and also show you how I use that technique to create these images. So hi everyone, this is Jiggie, a portrait and wedding photographer from the Philippines, and welcome to the channel. So today I am once again taking you behind the scenes during an actual engagement shoot and show you a particular lighting technique that I love using because it gives beautiful natural looking light. And for me, that's the one that creates so much elegance when it comes to images. So let me show you what I mean.
Nice. Quite dito na pa. Ruby profile to your left. Nice. Smile now. Good. Ganda. Ruby, can you go in a bit closer to Melvin?
Sorry that there's some times that I would be speaking in Tagalog, but basically I'm just complimenting them when I say ganda. So it's a Tagalog lesson. When I say ganda, it means beautiful. So immediately you could see from that clip that I was shooting the opposite direction, or I was actually in the opposite side of my light, because I had beautiful existing ambient light, and what I needed to do was to create a nice kicker light. Well, actually, I don't really consider it my kicker light, was to create a main light coming from the short side of the face in order for me to get that wraparound light that I want because of the beautiful existing ambient light that we already had. However, if I shot without flash, that beautiful existing ambient light would turn out to be really flat. Okay, and you notice the pose that I made them do was very basic, but it gave the look of movement. So that's how I would normally pose very static images to make it look as if they were doing something different. Okay, and this is the image that had no flash, exactly what I mean, but you see that the light was coming here, so it's not really considered highlights, but rather this is your shadow area and this is your true tone, or basically the proper exposure, my light coming from here, and that's how it looked like. It looked like the sun was really just shining on his face. This is your shadow area, so my existing ambient light was my shadow area and doing that, and you can see that it seems as if they were just walking and there was a bit of movement. Now let me show you how I use that particular lighting technique again in this next video. Right now we're taking some beautiful portraits of our groom Melvin, but since we have already beautiful soft light on his face, except that we have flat light, don't you think, Melv? Yeah. Melvin's a photographer. Right now we have flat light. Yeah. So we're using this light not as our main light, but rather as a kicker light. So my settings, I'm actually on aperture priority. I'm on 1.2 because my flash is on high speed sync. So let's just take a few shots. Yes, I do love shooting an aperture priority because it just makes life so much simpler for me. With my Sony cameras, what you see is what you get in the screen. So all I have to do is move my exposure compensation dial to get the proper exposure that I want, then control my flash using my trigger, which is what I did here. By the way, the camera that I used was my Sony a7R Mark IV with a 50mm 1.2 lens, and the flash that I had was my Phottix Indra 500. It's a studio, well, it's a battery operated studio strobe that's capable of TTL and high speed sync and gives me 500 watts of power. Okay, so let's just take a few shots with a 51.2. Beautiful. And look at that. I'll take one shot without flash. Okay, one shot without flash. That's without flash. That one's without flash too. And then let me put on my flash, which is on 1/4 power. Beautiful. Can we call Ruby? Okay, Ruby, just take your first slide and your right foot forward. Okay, on the count, one, just do one step like that, right? On the count, 1, 2, 3, go. Just like this, perfectly. Smile. Then you put your left foot forward. Left. Forward. You can see that there were a lot of photographers and videographers also shooting during that day because Melvin is part of a photography and video group, and I invited the rest of the team to actually shoot with us. So shout out to the M&B guys. You guys were fantastic to really shoot with. You could also see the technique that I would normally do when I would make the bride just take, or the subject take one step to give that sense of movement without having him or her move forward and back so many times and leave it up to chance. So I normally just make them take one step. I'll take the shot so it gives a sense of movement. And this is a straight out of camera image This is the unprocessed one, and this is the processed one. And of course, we took another one. Again, we used this particular light for another layout, and let me show you.
Ruby, konting kilig ka naman ng konti. Yeah.
So that's one light setup that you guys are most likely familiar with. It's 45 degrees from your subjects, right in front of them, illuminating them. And this is the image from that particular scene. And it's not so bad. However, my issue is, you see how it looks so artificially lit? Because you couldn't light up everything. So we had really flat light here, then all of a sudden you've got light here. It doesn't look natural, it doesn't look harmonious, it doesn't look elegant. So from this particular layout, I decided to shift my light to the back again. We've got beautiful natural light already, beautiful soft light. So again, I used my flash as a rear light. And look. This is without flash, can you see? And this is one with flash. Subtle differences, but it looks so different. So this is the one without flash, and this is the one with flash. Without flash, with flash. Without flash, with flash. Subtle differences that make you think whether or not it was lit artificially. Now, that's one thing I'm always trying to go for. I want my light to look as unseen as possible. I want it to be as harmonious as possible. I want it to be as elegant as possible. So again, I decided to use that particular light setup for one last layout, and here goes.
Hindi pa rin ako. Ruby, tilt your head to your right. Love it. Okay.
So this again is a combination of my very first layout and my second layout. So I had my light in front of them while I was shooting from behind. So this is how the image looked like without flash, and this is how the image looked like with flash. Very similar to the very first image that I showed you where I had the light on the groom. This time I had it on the bride. But I wasn't content with that, so I decided again to shift the light to the back, and this is how it went. Now, you saw earlier that one big problem of mine when I had it directly on them from the front was that it felt very fake because I couldn't illuminate everything. But with this one, I was able to get a proper balance of ambient light and flash and made it seem as if the sun was coming from here, because even if you are by the beach, depending on where you're located, sometimes the sun would set in the opposite side of the ocean rather than on the ocean, and we were able to get away with this one in this particular shot. So one thing in common with all the light setups that I showed was the fact that I had my light at the opposite side from where I was shooting from. That's normally the area reserved for your kicker light. However, in this particular case, I showed that that area from where the kicker light normally is can actually be your main light. And by doing that, I made my existing ambient light create that fill light that I needed to create that shape, form, texture, and depth of my images. So if you have any questions, feel free to leave them in the comment section below. And I do hope you enjoyed this video. And if you did, subscribe to the channel, click that notification bell, and at the same time, also like this video so that you can help out the channel even more. Now, if you want to see more of my images, you could always find me on Instagram. It's at Jiggie Alejandrino. Okay, till the next video.